All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the ninth episode of Atoma. Hope you guys have been having a great new month. Things are changing kind of slowly back across the world when you check the news. Places are opening up slowly, but it seems like it's opening up kind of fast. And I guess soon people will be able to still kind of step outside and see more people, even though people have already been doing that regardless, but it doesn't matter. Well, we're still going to keep doing this. We're going to still study the word. And today we have a special guest with us, Pastor Joey. So, Joey, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and?
Yeah. Well, my name's Joey. I live in Pasco, Washington. It's the church I pastor right now, and I'm in transition of going to seminary. I was Andrews. Going.
That's awesome.
I'm in transition there, so I've been in a 2-year internship, and it's over in August. So catch me in Andrews next school year.
Yeah, good, man. Congrats on that transition. I've heard good things, but I've never heard it be called cemetery. I kind of like that.
It's too cold over there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's true. So
I'm
the
excited,
text today.
but I'm not excited. Yeah, whatever.
Oh no, my bad.
No,
Go ahead, bro. No. Hey man, if you want to open up about that.
I don't want to rant. I don't want to. Let's move forward. That's good.
The text today, we're going to look at Luke chapter 14. But before we get into it, we're just going to pray, just to open up. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another day, Lord. Thank you for the positive changes that seem to be happening around the world. I pray that we're able to just learn more about you in this text and learn more about what you're calling us to do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So the text today will be taken from Luke chapter 14, verses 25 to 33. Luke chapter 14, verses 25 to 33. Get your Bibles out and get ready to study it with us this morning. Luke chapter 14, verses 25 to 33. And I'll begin. It says, "Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned to them and said, 'If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple.
Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?
Otherwise, you might only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, "There's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it."
Or what king going to make war against another king does not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple.
Does anything stand out to anybody right off the bat, just from this text?
I guess just the difficulty of the last verse in my personal life, I guess. Because I've tried to do an experiment like this before, like giving away as many things as I could. And it's still a process, like it's still happening because it's so difficult for me personally to let some of the stuff go. And this goes even deeper and doesn't only say stuff, but it says people too, like family, like the closest people. For me personally, like I am blessed. I'm lucky. I have my mom and dad. I have a sister, and I'm close to them, and they're people that are important in my life. And to hate them, and to not forsake and to forsake all of them is crazy. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. My question actually I have for you guys to actually just to kind of discuss that, and that's just stemming from your point. Jesus talks about how a king or someone building a tower wouldn't start unless they've known what it costs, like what exactly they're looking for. And there's a cost apparently that comes with being a disciple of God. Have you guys ever felt like, especially as pastors, especially as people who felt like we followed what God is asking us to do? And that doesn't mean just being a pastor, but like, there comes a point for everyone where you feel like God's calling you to do something or like to follow him. What has been the cost for you guys? Gotta be a little vulnerable here this morning.
Well, for me, the cost for me, I feel right now, is going to Andrews, because I'm very close to my family. I love my my family, and kind of backing off of what Peter said. Right now, my father's sick. He has Parkinson's. He was diagnosed like 2 years ago, and he's just went downhill, and to the point where he's losing his balance. He falls a lot. And right now I'm an hour away from him, and so for me, going to Andrews across the country, it's going to be hard for me. And I've talked to him about it, and my dad's always been supportive. I mean, he's the main reason why I started, my Christian walk. And so I feel like being away from my family for that long, for 2 years, is something I've never done. I've been out of the house since I was 18. I lived in Seattle for a number of years. I was at Walla Walla, but being thousands and thousands of miles away is going to be hard, especially hearing, my mom call me. He's like, yeah, he fell today. Yeah, he's having a bad day, And for me not to be there to help him I think that's a great cost for me. But like I said, my father has been that person saying, just follow God. And I feel like God puts people in our lives to encourage us. And, it's easy for me to hate my own life. Like, I get it. Kind of hate myself a lot sometimes. But to hate someone else is easier when they're asking you to follow God. That person to say, don't worry about me. I'll be good. Just go. So that's been like the cross I'm bearing right now.
And I just want to even add, just before someone else goes, thanks so much for sharing that, Joey. And that's the cost. There's a cost, and sometimes it's so uncomfortable to chew. And I think like you brought up something like how you said hate there, and like I remember when I used to read this verse, I used to kind of get a little scared about it because I'm like, man, God wants me to hate these people. But I think it's like that's just kind of like the way he was talking. But what his point is, and like you displayed it in just the way you explained it, is that like it's not about hating, like being like negative towards us, but God wants us to know that we have to love him more than everything, And so just for anyone listening, that like God, it's not saying like hate these people, hate your family, but it's make sure you don't love them more than him. And that's like, well, man, what does that mean? Like you're saying, making a choice where you have to choose him over people you grew up with, people you love. So who else? Yeah, what about everyone else?
For me, one of the things that I find has kind of been hard as like a pastor is when I come into a new environment and people are like, oh, this is Pastor Alex. It's like automatically like they're nice to me and I talk to them and they talk to me, but the level of friendship that I like want to have with people, it's like there's like a barrier because they're like, well, she's a pastor, so how is she gonna feel if I say this, or how is she gonna feel if I say that? Like they kind of feel like they have to put their guard up around me. But little do they know, I'm the chillest person you will ever find. Okay, but the reason why that's is just because I'm such a people person. Like since I was younger, my mom would always say to me, like, I'm not sending you to school to sending you to school to get an education. But for me, connecting with people and having friendship and relationship with people is such a major thing for me. And I just realized that as a pastor, it's something that like people are kind of like, we can't let her get too close because like what if she judges us for this or judges us for that, or what if she thinks she's better than us because we do this or we do that kind of thing. But yeah.
Dang. I have right now, or like in the last year or months, I've had the opposite problem. I've kind of had to, like, speaking directly to Alex, I guess the opposite problem is like I've had to force the idea of myself being a pastor a little bit, so much so that I changed my username on Instagram. Like, it used to be go with the flow underscore res, because that's my last name, and I really like that, and that's my Twitter handle right now. But now it's underscore Pastor Peter underscore. And the reason I did that is because I'm church planting, so it's a little bit different. I don't go to a congregation every day and they come up to me and address me as pastor. And not that I want people to address me as pastor, and they don't now, and they haven't, and I don't expect that. But the idea is putting it out there like, hey, this is the life I've chosen, and I don't want to hide it from you. I want it to be apparent, and at times it is completely limiting. People will not talk to me. For example, I frequent or I did frequent a rock gym a lot, and when I went climbing there, I would talk to as many people as I wanted. I had tons of friends, like in the first like weeks and months, and then people started adding me on Instagram. And they were like, hold up, who is this guy? What's he doing? Why is he here? You know, because like climbers, it's like it's its own culture. You know, like weed is okay, and like I have no problem with hanging out with them. Like, and drinking is okay, and I have no problem hanging out with them still. Like, I'm just among them, and these things are happening, and like I'm being honest. Like, it's tough when you put that username out there. People will literally walk away from you. They don't want to have anything to do with you because they expect that you're going to be judgmental. They expect you to act a certain way. And I think that's part of the cost. It's giving up the facade you kind of had before. If you get what I mean, like, I could just have a, like, I'm not saying the username has changed everything on its own. I'm saying that like the attitude, and like I have to be intentional. Like, when people ask me like, why don't you drink beer? Is that an opportunity for me, or is that more of just like me being real with people and like, hey, this is the path I've chosen? And that, I don't know, it's kind of difficult sometimes to think about it that way, but it's just interesting.
I'll tell you guys, like, for me, man, I grew up around like going to like public school, etc. And man, I think like God's always called me to like doing leadership or kind of being someone that was able to like, you know, like galvanize all the people, all my boys and stuff. Like, hey, let's go do this. Let's go do this, or let's go do that. Right. That was always like what I've always loved doing. And man, like, I was leading my boys into doing partying, like whatever we did, all that stuff back in the day. I was looking for the next event, etc., for us to go to. I was like aware of all that stuff, like, because I was always so socialized outside of our group, so that we could all go be there, etc. And that was one of the ways like I connected with them, because like we could just do these things outside of sports and stuff. We do everything together. And man, I remember back when I was in grade, maybe when I was in like grade 10, I felt really left out because we play football in the spring, in the fall, and then come winter when basketball season came, I wasn't trying to play ball, and then they'd all be playing ball together, and I wouldn't be. And I remember that feeling of being like left out. I hated that, right? And so that's why I think I grinded so hard outside of that to keep bringing everyone together, because like I didn't want to be left out. I didn't want anyone else to be left out. And then all of a sudden, when I felt called to do ministry, and their lives became kind of more surrounded around these things that I stopped doing, I felt like I feel left out, you know? And it's like, yeah, like obviously, like, you know, it's something I don't want to do. And it's not that like I miss the action, but I hate the feeling of being left out, you know? And it's like, it's tough. Like, they're going out, like even when I go back to Ottawa, they'll be like, oh, we're going to go out tonight and do this thing. And I'm like, man, you know, I just want to spend time with my boys, but I can't.
Yeah,
and you know, I think that, and that has come up in different ways, even while I was in college, like with people I've met in college, etc. And it's like, man, that was a cost. Like, and I hate that feeling of being left out. And that was a cost. Like, being able to feel the concept of being left out think that's something I've had to deal with. You know, and I think my next question to you guys, how do you guys think we can handle, or how do you deal with that cost? You know, how do you get through with paying that cost? How do you move forward?
Well, for me, I remember I always have to look back, in this verse it says, for who would begin the construction of a building without calculating the cost, and they'll look at him, and he only completes a foundation. And for me, I have to look back at my foundation. I have to look back at what God brought, the hole he brought me out of, and put me on solid ground of the path I started, that we started together. And like you were saying, Ben, I come from public school. I went to public college for while I was in Seattle. I was in Seattle. The nightlife was everything, and a big part of my story was like I gambled a lot, and so I was always like all into gambling. I would spend sun up, sundown, putting all I had into that. And so when God brought me out of that, I had to find new ways to spend my time, a new foundation. And it was through his love. And also for me, a big fact was like fitness. I started working out again. I played ball, I played football, I played soccer, but for me, fitness really brought me back, and to see where, you start working out, and you start to notice the changes. But once you start, you stop, you start losing everything. And so you have to look back into where you started. And fitness for me has been something of a foundation of not just, trying to look good, but, your emotion, your motivation, your determination, all that has to come aligned together. And I feel that God has brought me to where I am through that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And also remembering my family. You gotta keep pushing. You gotta surround yourself with people that are encouraging you, that are, I don't know. I'm probably not making sense.
No, that makes sense.
Jumping off of what Joey said, I think he had a theme of when you have to let go of those things that are kind of holding you to the world and keeping you from Christ, you have to better, it gives you the opportunity to better yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what God wants. That's what Christ wants, that when he's telling you to let go of your mother, let go of your father, let go of your brothers or your sisters, he's essentially saying, let go of the things that keep you tied to this world, that keep you away from me. And when you let go of these things, then you're able to focus on you and how to make you a better person, a better Christian, and how to strengthen your relationship with Christ. Because I find that, like I was saying earlier, like sometimes people hear Pastor Alex and they automatically assume that I'm like rigid or something. And so because of that, I haven't been surrounded by people and friend groups and all that kind of stuff. And so I find a lot of time where I reflect on my relationship with Christ. I reflect on what I can do to make it stronger. More time in the Bible, more time in prayer, more time in worship. And essentially, not only does that better me, but that betters my relationship with Christ. And then when I go out into the world, it makes me a more honest woman, in the sense that like, I really do feel what other people are talking about. I have experienced it, the wanting to be better, wanting to do better, feeling down on myself, feeling like, what if God doesn't want to use me anymore? because I took that time to work on myself, I can tell my story even better and share it with people, because I let go of the things that held me to this world and focused on Christ and being his disciple.
Mm.
Yeah. It just makes me think of a few different things, I guess. Like I think of like what makes the cost worth it. Like I think of Peter and when he was walking on the water, walking towards Jesus. When he was actually successfully walking on the water, he was focused on God. And a lot of pastors and preachers have used that story to signify, focus on Jesus the entire way. And when you break it down, it's really what it is. It's where your focus is, the end goal. You're starting the foundation, but it's the building. That's the thing that you're aiming for. The thing that at the beginning, when you weigh the cost, when you look at the cost and you're like, oh man, it's like, it seems almost impossible, but we forget that we don't need to worry about the cost at all. It's Jesus has paid for everything for us. Jesus has paved the way, and it will be difficult. He didn't say it'd be easy. And that's just to reconcile that. You have to be focused on the end goal. You have to be constantly meditating on the fact that there's something beyond what this world is, which brings me to like another point I was thinking of. I worked at this camp 2 summers ago, and there was a guy that came and spoke, and he sang this song, and it was just like he sang it with a kind of vibe that was like super country, and it's like I'm in Maine, so like there's not a lot of like ethnicity out here. Like there's mostly just white people. And that's the majority of the camp. This guy came through and he was singing this song. I'm not sure if it's a hymn. I'm not sure what it's really from, but like I had never heard it before. And he just started it and he's like, "This world is not my home. I'm just passing through." And he just goes all into it and he just sings the entire thing. And his point was, like, don't worry about stuff in this world. Focus on the end goal. The end goal is going to be so much sweeter. Like there's so many things that we deal with now. Like if the point is they outweigh whatever cost we can have here. That's something we should be focused on.
I wanna back up in the text a little bit to the beginning of it, around verse 25, and verse 26. Just even verse 25, even that's that one sentence. Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned to them and said, I'm thinking about it. Jesus now has been walking, and he's surrounded by a lot of people surrounding him, and yet he talks about what it means to be a disciple. So it's almost like Jesus now, even when you read the last 2 parables, the great banquet, the wedding feast, Jesus is like clearly trying to sift out these guys. He's trying to tell them like, do you guys really know what it means to be to be with me? He's trying to sift them out. He's not that he's even trying to sift them out. He's trying to show them that like he's not trying to deceive them. He's trying to explain to them how serious this is. Now Kyle Idleman, he wrote a book. One of my students actually bought this book for me too, called Not a Fan. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that book. Not a Fan. And it talks about what it means to be a follower versus a fan of Jesus, of God, of Christ. But at its funnier, it's here, it almost seems like Jesus is trying to show them what the difference it means to be a follower or a crowd member versus a disciple. And I think that's something we all battle with, or maybe at one point. But my question is like, how do you move from being like just on the outside, being a fan, or maybe being a part of the crowd, to being a disciple? What does that look like? And something like, and like, why are we tempted to kind of stay as crowd members sometimes?
Answering the second half of that question, why we're tempted to stay crowd members, because the first half is a little complex. I'm gonna let one of y'all scholars handle that one. But for the crowd aspect, it's just easier. Like being a fan, being a crowd member, it doesn't require for you to do much. It doesn't require the same level of commitment as being a disciple. So when you're a crowd member, you just gotta be there, enjoy the story, enjoy the free food, the bread and the fish that come with, with the day you spend with Jesus, and then you just go home and go on about your way. You continue doing whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want. So being a crowd member is or a fan is much easier than actually being a disciple, because like you said, Jesus is trying to let them know like, it's not going to be easy. I don't want you to think that it's going to be the high life every single day. I don't want you to think that nothing wrong is ever going to happen or nothing like that. Whereas when you're a fan, like there's no commitment. You could decide not to be a fan any day, you know? It's kind of like when you look at 21st century like stardom culture or like luxury life, you know, like you could choose to be a Jay-Z fan in 2006 and now in 2020 you're like, actually he's done too much, I don't want it no more. You're not a fan anymore. You're not hurting nobody, like nobody even knows, you know, like being a fan is so much easier than being like
Hmm.
It's like going to Costco with your parents when you're a kid. They have the membership, but you're just there getting all the free food. You get all the benefits. It's so much easier because like you really feel like, oh yeah, I'm the biggest fan, and like I get all the gift bags and the treats. But like when it comes down to it, like, oh sorry, I'm not a member. Can't shop here. Sorry.
Yeah, just eat.
Don't you still need your parents' permission to get the snacks though? At least for me, I always had to.
And you just gotta all we get is the samples. You don't have the membership.
Yeah. You can't buy the big bag of the
Make
Dino
any
chicken
purchases.
nuggets, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta get your parents to do it.
I mean, even like I think like they were looking to see Jesus as somebody who was like a conqueror, you know what I mean, go to his kingdom. And like that's why they were amped, right? They were gathering around him like, oh man, he's gonna do these great things for me, right? But they weren't looking at the fact that he was gonna go die, right? Or the struggle about it, right? And I think sometimes we get caught up. I don't know if this like not to sound strange about it, but it's like we get caught up maybe just in like miracles or like in like kind of how God's gonna bless me rather than how can I be a follower of God even when he doesn't bless me, even when there's gonna be struggle, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just did a sermon, you know, just throw it out there. It's on YouTube. Now, you know, the walk to Emmaus, you know, the two disciples, the two Christ followers that were leaving Jerusalem. And, you know, if you go into that story, they're like, we had hope he was the Messiah. We had hope that he was the one to, you know, bring Israel on top. And what I loved about this story is that even if we are just fans and, you know, fans doubt, you know, I put it into a sports situation of, you know, say the Seahawks. I'm a Seahawks fan. And so, you know, if they're having a bad year, it's like, oh man, it should have been our year. We had hope, you know, we're going to go to the Super Bowl, you know. But regardless, even though if we are just fans of Christ and we had doubt, he is still walking with us in that doubt. He's still trying to encourage us. He's like, you were fans, but I need you to be followers. And once they found their motivation and their motivation, they found their determination, because right after that walk, you know, they went back to Emmaus. And I feel like even if we are fans, we are still trying to represent the kingdom. But if we are followers, we're trying to grow the kingdom. You know, and so my goal on earth is to love people, love God, love people. And so I want to be a disciple to grow his kingdom. And I wanted, If you look at athletes, they train. They think, oh, they just play one game and they're millionaires. No, they spent their life training. They break their bodies down, and that's why they're the best of the best. And if we are to be Christ followers, we have to bear our cross and go and bear that cross. And so being a fan is fun, but being a follower is much more meaningful, I believe.
I want to like pose a story, you guys. Like think about this, like in terms of the story of Jesus. Like there are people that got fed, they got the bread and fish, and they saw this miracle, right, firsthand. And they saw like Jesus, like, wait, what happened? Like there was only like 3 and 2, and now there's, oh, cool, yeah, yum, I get to eat, awesome, kind of like the Costco handout, like the little snacks and stuff. And then these same people, as Jesus is marching in to Jerusalem, they're like, yeah, stoked, yeah, awesome. And then it comes down to when they want to crucify Jesus. And some of these same people, maybe it's the same exact person that got the bread, that was stoked when Jesus was coming in, now sees that the vibe is, we're hating Jesus now? Oh, okay. Ooh, all right, here we go. All right, Jesus, ooh, you're bad. Yeah, crucify him. Imagine that same process happening. And like where that person's, like, think about the parable of like the seeds and stuff, where was that person's heart planted? And like that person was a fan, like a diehard like fan, like fake fan, you could even say, like it's that person that like he's wearing the Seahawks jersey, Joey, and then like underneath he has a Patriots jersey, and you're like, oh, come on, like what's going on? And like it's like think about living that life, having all the benefits, and when it comes down to it, boom, you fail. So it's like you really, there's a huge gap of difference to me in my mind of sure, like Joy was saying, representing and then growing is so much more of a commitment.
It is. Guys, I'm looking at the time, and I think I'm gonna close up the text. I'm gonna close up what we're reading, because this has been a lot. It's been good, like a lot of important things that we need to reflect. What is the cost of our discipleship? And are we ready to move towards discipleship ourselves? Joey, you said something that, being a fan is fun, but being a disciple is much, much more meaningful. And God wants us to have a meaningful life. God wants us to have a meaningful relationship with him. And you know what? Like you mentioned, a really good thing is that God still loves us no matter where we are. God still lets us walk around him despite where we are. Right? Like that's not something that he's like, well, where's your disciple? Let's stand over there. Right? Yeah. He's still, the crowd still surrounded him. But God wants us to surround him even when things get hard. And that's the only way for us to, when we're disciples, despite what happens, we will surround him. And so our prayer today, my prayer for everyone who's listening and for all of us who are here, is that we seek out our personal, what has been the cost for us, or what is God calling us to do, and what is the cost that he's telling us to pay up, because he wants us to have a meaningful relationship with him.
Amen.
So have a good week. Have a good rest of your Sabbath, everyone. And hope you guys all just stay blessed. Take care.